Hello BookTube, my name is Violette and welcome to my channel. Today I'd love to do the BookTube Newbie Tag. Now a lot of the time I might be just speaking to the camera without having dot points or without a script, but today I'm actually using a script. So bear with me as I just didn't want to miss anything out. So first question for the BookTube Newbie Tag is, why did you start this channel? Well, the main reason is because I love reading and I want to share and make some connections with other readers. And I actually only stumbled on BookTube videos by accident last year. I think I was actually looking up some book collections and sort of antique type books. But then I found BookTube and I haven't looked back since, I think. So yeah, before that I didn't realize there was such a thing as BookTube. I guess I did spend too much time, well, not too much time, there's never too much time in reading, but also watching on things like Netflix or TV, amongst other things. Also, I think on YouTube I found the constant ads really annoying. So I didn't spend much time on there before BookTube. But then when I discovered BookTube, I really wanted to keep watching. So I ended up paying to get rid of the ads, but it is overpriced, I must say. So I'm just lucky I could afford to do that. So another reason I started the channel is that quite a few of the booktubers were really inspiring. So a few of them, to name a few, are Shelley Swearingen, Steve Donoghue, and Book Chat with Pat. Question number 2. What are some fun and unique things you can bring to BookTube? Well, I'm not sure about fun and unique things that I can bring to BookTube, but maybe I'll think of some along the way that might touch on those things. But I think most people's reading tastes and thoughts on books, they have similarities, but each person's history and their personal experiences do give us different readings. So even of the same book, throughout our lives, if we choose to reread them. But mostly I do just hope to recommend a few books and authors of some you might not have heard of before, or at least to share my thoughts on them if you already know them. Number 3, question 3 is, what are you most excited about for this new channel? Well, mostly I'm excited to take part in the community of booktubers and booktube watchers, to get to know more of you and to have fun creating videos. What else? Oh yes, I'd like to take part in some of the monthly book events that happen throughout the year, like Shaketember and Victober, like I'm taking part in Victober now. I'm excited to share my favourite books with a wider audience and to keep finding out about more books and authors from you as well. Question 4. Why do you love reading? Well, might sound a bit cliched, but I do enjoy getting pulled into stories, seeing new places, in my mind's eye anyway, and meeting different people and experiencing things vicariously. It expands my worldview in a more in-depth way than just watching movies or documentaries, great as they are. I also love the English language, how it looks, how it sounds, the wonderful combinations of ideas and images especially that words convey. I think it's just incredible. I think that's probably why I'm drawn to things like poetry and prose with those elements where they really sparkle from the pages. That's what I love. That's what I love most, I think, about reading. This year, however, I have been drawn more and more to non-fiction books. I don't know why, I just have been. But I guess I'm just growing as a reader. I've always had a fascination for archaeology, history, nature and animals. So I was satisfied for most of my life by those topics through documentaries. And then of course, eventually some of the things I could find on YouTube, even though the ads were still frustrating me. But now I think I just want to get into more detail. So with the topic, or I found some new topics, but I want to get into the topic with a book first. And then I might seek out some movies or documentaries on the topic. Okay, question 5. What book or series got you into reading? Well, when I was a kid, I was quite late in learning to read. So it was a real struggle for me. And then at age 8, my family emigrated and I had to learn English too. I think I didn't really get into reading until I was about 11. But from then on, I seemed to inhale books like I'd been starved of oxygen my whole life. But my parents had always read to me as a young child, so I was lucky in that way. Hearing the stories from the Brothers Grimm and Hans Christian Andersen in German will always be some of my fondest memories. Although many of the Grimm or the Brüder Grimm stories were terrifying, but fascinating for me. And images that formed in my imagination for some of those stories, they're still with me. I can still picture them. So when I was 11 years old and I finally began reading for pleasure on my own, it was such a liberating experience for me, as I'm sure it is for many readers, especially for lifelong readers. So back to the question. The book or series that really got me into reading were 3 that really come to mind, actually. Black Beauty, The Secret Garden, and Anne of Green Gables series. So I was very keen on horses when I was younger, and to have a story told from the point of view of a horse, that was really revelatory. That was a completely different experience for me. The Secret Garden was a book I reread a few times, and of course watched the multiple adaptations of movies that came out over the years. In that story, I think I loved reading about the garden itself, and for a child to have their own special secret place to go to. I like to see how Mary changed throughout the story, and of course I love Dickon and his animals. The Anne of Green Gables books meant a lot to me because I enjoyed living alongside the highly individual character of Anne when I read, and I shared her love of beauty and nature, beautiful names and words in general. And I think it was in the first book in the series when The Lady of Shalott by Tennyson is quoted and acted out by Anne and her friends. That's when I first fell in love with poetry. That's when it really stuck in my head. I had always enjoyed things like Child's First Garden of Verses, I think it was called, or something along those lines by Robert Louis Stevenson. But when I was younger, Tennyson was just different for me. And his words kind of sang off the page, and from then on I was reading poetry, I started writing poetry, I still write poetry, and I'm even lucky enough to have had a few things published, which is quite exciting. Not the main aim of it, but I've just always had the love of poetry, I think. So probably stay tuned for Poetry Thursday. Maybe once every 2 weeks I might do it. We'll see. Sorry, rambled off here. Question 6. What questions would you ask your favourite booktubers? Well, my question will always be along the lines of, what's your favourite fiction and non-fiction book so far? Or a collection of 5 or 10 different names for books? Because I know, well, for me it's really hard. I have to, every time I read new books, I find new favourites. So either my list of favourites grows or some gets supplanted. But I think questions about BookTube itself, they've been covered pretty well over the years. So even recently by Shelley Swearingen, she made the video called Why Booktubers Quit, and then Steve's response video and quite a few others followed on. I won't make one. I think it's all been covered by now. But it certainly gave me a lot to think about, especially as their videos only came out the day after I posted my very first video. So I'm going to keep a lot of their points in mind as I continue this journey. Oh yeah, I'll leave the links to those 2 videos below as well. Okay, question 7. What challenges do you think starting a BookTube channel would be the hardest to overcome? I think getting used to speaking to the camera by myself. It's a very strange experience, as I'm sure those of you who do this will understand. So I use the back of my, I use my phone as my camera, but I use the back camera, so I can't actually see myself, which in one way might actually be better, but it can be a bit disconcerting just staring at the back of my phone, unless maybe I stick a picture or something on the back of, I don't know, something to look at, or someone. Might stick a picture of my husband on there, pretend like I'm talking to him. So where was I? Yeah, I'm not usually a very talkative person, so I'm a bit out of my comfort zone. The most I talk, actually I do talk for my work, but that's to students. I'm a primary school teacher, so I'm used to speaking in front of a room full of students, but a room full of adults or a camera is a different thing. I do love to recommend books to others, and I suppose I have made the leap to start the channel, and I'll just have to get used to that, speaking to the camera part, and hopefully just become more comfortable over time with it. Oh, where was I up to? Question 8. Just scroll down a bit. When did I start reading? I think I already covered that in the other question about why I love reading, or at least that's when I got into reading, which was when I was 11. I did struggle to learn to read when I was young, and I always just associated it with a huge sense of frustration, and I hated it, to be honest. It felt like torture. I had I hated school with a passion. Actually, through most of my schooling, I hated school, so go figure, I'm a teacher now, but maybe it's me trying to make life at school a little bit more bearable, a bit more fun. Where was I? I always go off on tangents. So anyway, oh, that's right, feelings of frustration. So unless I was being read to at the time, I did love stories, just not me reading them. But I'm so glad things changed for the better, and reading just suddenly just clicked for me. It just worked and opened the doors to so much. But when it comes to speed, I think I'm more of a tortoise than a hare when it comes to most things. Number 9. Where do you read? Well, I usually read on my bed or the couch, and sometimes outside if the weather's good. At the moment it's actually getting a bit dark. We've got rain clouds there, so that's why I'm filming inside. I'm in the kitchen actually, so I've got books everywhere in the house. There are about 3 bookshelves just in the kitchen itself. I have, yeah, my shelves are groaning under the weight. I need to get some more bookshelves. What else? Oh yeah, I also bring a book if I know I have to wait somewhere. So I don't always bring a book with me, because usually whatever I'm doing, there's no time for, I know there won't be time for waiting, like, you know, just going to the shops to get some food, or places like if I go to the doctor's, yeah, I'll bring a book. I know I'll be waiting. So I do like it quiet when I read, but if I'm reading a book that's got a particular setting, or especially a long scene in nature, so for example by the sea or in a forest, especially European forest, or if it's the Australian bush, I do like to listen to recordings from YouTube, so nature recordings. It just gives a lot more atmosphere. It makes me feel like I'm really there. I guess you could call it an immersive reading experience. Yeah, do any of you do anything similar to that? Sometimes put some background sounds, for atmosphere, whether it's music or nature recordings. Something I also sometimes do is if there's a piece of music mentioned in a book, and especially if I'm not familiar with it, but even if I am, I will look it up on YouTube and I'll play it, and then I'll reread that passage or just let it play as I continue reading until it's finished. Actually, that way I've found a fair bit of music I didn't know was out there and that I really liked. So that's I highly recommend doing that, even if you don't listen to the music while you're reading, but it's worthwhile to look up the music if you don't know it. Okay, question 10, which is the last one. Oh my goodness, and is my absolutely longest answer here. Question 10 is, what kind of books do you like to read? Well, I like adult and children's fiction, a wide range of poetry, and non-fiction. That's just put it in a nutshell, but I'm going to go into more detail. Break it down for you. So I like English, Russian, and Japanese classics. The latter two all translated because I don't speak Russian or Japanese, although my other language, my mother tongue, is German, but I'll go into that a little bit later. I do want to read the ancient classics, and I've started and I'm always halfway through the Odyssey. And when Steve Donahue kept saying his favourite book was Ovid's Metamorphoses, I of course had to listen and act on his wisdom, and he's got way more reading experience than I do, and than I probably will have in my lifetime, because he reads so quickly and it's his job, and he's the book reviewer, and I really, really trust his recommendations. Anyway, where was I? So anyway, yeah, now I've got the Penguin Classics 2004 edition of Metamorphoses, arrived today. And once I've finished my Victober reads, I'll be starting on that one, or at least that translation. And then hopefully I will also love the book, and maybe next year seek out a different translation, and I can get a feel for how things were translated, and maybe what one translator missed, another one picked up on. Where was I? Oh yeah, that's right. Back to Metamorphoses again. I can't leave this one alone. Steve said that the English translations, and probably actually any translation into any language, always falls short. He says at least 80% short. So that's just, yeah, it got me a bit disheartened, but mostly because I know I'm really missing out by not knowing Latin and not being able to really get a grasp of the full beauty of it, I suppose. Maybe I'll learn Latin at some stage, but I don't know, it might take me 30 years to be able to read something like Metamorphoses in Latin. That's right. So my mother tongue, my first language is German, but certainly English feels much more natural to me. If I was to have a conversation in German, I would be struggling for words. I'd be unsure of the grammar. Some things come naturally, but I have just started supplementing, trying to get more of that language back so I can read books like The Magic Mountain and some Goethe in its original language, which I look forward to, but what I'm starting with a more popular type fiction just to get in the swing of it, and even that is slow going. So I think it'll be quite a few years before I can come to The Magic Mountain, which I'm quite keen to read. I might read the English translation first, or one of the translations, but then I think the aim is definitely to read it in the original. Sorry, it's going on forever. Okay, oh yeah, backtracking a bit now. So I was mostly into fantasy and mysteries when I was a teenager, but I do still love them. But there are so many other kinds of books that are kind of like elbowed their way through to me, and I have to let them in. I can't say no. So I like science fiction, but I've really only lately got into it in the last few months. And I started with some of Ursula K. Le Guin's books. The Lathe of Heaven was the first one I read. And I've got a few Anne McCaffrey's as well, but not whole collections. I think I've got maybe the first 2 books in a series, and then it jumps to like books 5 and 6. So maybe by the time I've got to the second book, I'll find the 3rd and 4th one secondhand somewhere, hopefully. I've also started to read some biographies and memoirs. I'm really enjoying some memoirs. But I've got it here, one of my choices for biography is on George Eliot, called The Marriage Question by Claire Carlyle. And I just realized, of course, I could also count this for BookTuber, since I'm reading a George Eliot book, since I'm reading Silas Marner. Other than that, I've got some books about World War II lined up, some art books, things about the environment, animal behaviour, a little bit of politics, but not much, historical fiction. I really want to get to Dorothy Dunnett. So thank you, Shelley, for recommending Dorothy Dunnett. And I think that came through Steve's channel, so thank you, Steve. I was lucky enough to get one whole set at the massive book fair that's held here twice a year. So what else? So I guess, yeah, my reading tastes have evolved. And just in the last 2 years, I've got into reading more regularly. I had a huge break, probably about a decade, because I had kids. They take up a lot of time. I love them dearly, but some things like reading get pushed down then, unfortunately. Though I did manage to still keep writing a little bit during that time, just like snippets of time while they're at the playground, that sort of thing. Yeah, I think with my reading sort of gap was mostly when I was just really tired, and I'd just end up on the couch watching movies or Netflix or documentaries or something. It's about as much brain power as I had left just to absorb rather than process through reading and being more active. So when I was a teenager, I read all the time. So I'd read before school, I'd read at school. If that was only in high school, lunchtime, I'd read at lunchtime. And so luckily did at least 2 of my friends. I'd read after school, read and draw actually, because I love art and I love drawing and painting. But mostly I'd be reading and like snacking on apples and that sort of thing. Then I'd be reading under the covers with a torch, as most book lovers do. And also from the light from the corridor light used to be kept on in our place. So I'd kind of have my door open and angle my book to catch the light, but it was really pretty. It was pretty dark. It was half dark. So I think that's how I ended up being short-sighted from when I was about 13. Because I'd spent so many hours reading in the half dark. Definitely a bad decision of mine, even though I remember distinctly reading Black Beauty mostly in the half dark because I just couldn't stop. I couldn't put it down. The school holidays, now they were pure bliss because I could read for hours uninterrupted. I still remember sitting under a plum tree, but not plums you can eat, just like a decorative plum tree, and in the summer holidays and reading. Fantastic. The only downside in summer were the flies. Sometimes they drove me indoors. I couldn't stand that. So the holidays, I'd either be reading or drawing. That was my time. So anyway, that's it for me for the newbie tag. No idea how long this video is. But thank you if you have stayed to the end and hopefully got a little bit of a taste of my reading preferences so far. My next video is probably going to be for Poetry Thursday, which I would love to do since I love poetry, obviously. but I'm not sure how often I do that. I'm keeping in mind those videos because I don't want to be a booktuber that quits because it's all too much for me and I'm not, you know, adapting. So I'm trying to think ahead. I will adapt in the future if I need to, but I'm trying to keep it low key and not overcommit. So BookTuber, Poetry Thursday, maybe once every 2 weeks at the moment. And this video is of course for Tag Tuesday. And next Tuesday, possibly another tag video. I'll see. But I won't always be taking part in the sort of like those monthly readings like BookTuber and September, because I do just I like to, you know, just go to my bookshelf and pull something off and have a read of that and see if that sort of gels for me for the mood at the time. Sometimes I will put a book away again for a little while because I'm not quite in the mood for it. So I'm a bit of a mood reader. So doing something like BookTuber is a bit different for me. But I do love Victorian literature. So that's not such a hard sell for me. Anyway, thanks for joining me and bye for now.